Hello to the folks who are hopping on to join us today. Let's give it just another minute or two. Let a few more people hop on to the webinar, and then we'll get things started. Alrighty, thank you for everyone who has come to join us for today's webinar. This is PowerShell for Evolve Playbook. So whether you're looking to get started with PowerShell or you're looking for tips to optimize using PowerShell and Evolve, this is the webinar for you. Today's webinar is being presented by Evolve's Director of Product, Adam Heon. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will forward the recording to all registrants. You can also find all of the Evolve webinar recordings, plus more demos and fun stuff over on the Evolve MEP YouTube channel. If you have any questions during our webinar, please submit them using the Q&A function in the Zoom toolbar, and we will try to take those as we go, and we may have some time at the end to take a few questions. Great, and with that, I'm going to pass things over to Adam to kick it off today.
Thanks, Marina. Hello, everyone. This is Adam Heon, Director of Product with Evolve. Before we get started, Marina, can you post the first poll? I'm going to put out a couple of poll questions just to kind of gauge the audience here, where everybody's at with the topic. Then I kind of gauge where we should go with this. So for those that don't know, as Marina said, I'm the Director of Product with Evolve. I've been with Evolve since we launched 6 years ago or so. Started as the PM for Evolve Electrical and have been moving forward ever since. Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this topic. Let me jump over to the first slide here and talk about a few of the areas we're going to review. So basically, this is the agenda. I'm going to give you a little intro on PowerShell, what it is, why you'd use it, where would you use it, how would you use it, right? My general goal here is I'm going to assume most of the audience is going to be very new to this, and some may have never even heard of it. So I'm hoping to at least get everybody up to an understanding of what this is and what it means for you as an end user and how you can kind of take advantage of this. So that's kind of the goal here. So let's just give it a minute for these poll results to come in. Oh, I see them here. Okay, so a few intermediate, no experts, good. So you won't know how bad I'm at this. Beginners, and I don't know what it is. Perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and throw up that other poll too, Marina, if you can. So this next question is just kind of assuming everybody who knows PowerShell probably knows it because of Evolve, but maybe not. So let's just see kind of who's actually used it. Fair amount have used it, which is a good sign. Awesome. All right, well, let's jump into it. Looks like most of you are relatively new, which is a good thing. Hopefully I can share some good information here. So let's go through a few slides, just kind of give some context to what we're talking about, and then I'll jump into a model and we'll actually go through some exercises here. So what is PowerShell? It's a scripting language. If you're familiar with any type of scripting languages, C#, Python, VBA, etc., this is just another one. So that's the way you should think of it. Why would you use PowerShell? So the most common application for leveraging PowerShell in Evolve is creating custom workflows. So I'm kind of going to go through these items in reverse as I go through the exercises. But creating custom workflows is the most common way to that PowerShell comes into play. I'll explain more what that means when I give an example. But basically, Evolve is a very powerful tool set in its own. It's got a lot of great features out of the box. Everybody does something a little bit different, wants data structured a little different. Um, that's when PowerShell comes into play, and you can really take advantage of it where it shows up in Evolve. Um, with PowerShell, you can leverage the Revit API. So if you're familiar with Dynamo, that's basically, more or less a scripting language there. You can pretty much do anything with PowerShell that you could do with Dynamo. Um, I'll make a comment on that because a lot of people will ask us kind of why would I use PowerShell over Dynamo or vice versa. There's certainly applications for Dynamo that it's not like we've made it irrelevant. But the big benefit for leveraging PowerShell in Evolve is probably the scalability of it. It's easier to maintain and scale across projects and Revit versions because it's layered in Evolve. It's not Revit version specific. And it's easy to transfer that around. So from the scalability sense, and probably a performance as well, because you're leveraging a lot of the Evolve tool sets with it, uh, it can be better in a lot of places. The third area that you would use it is for advanced filtering. I'll give some examples of that. Um, Performing calculations. So if you're doing some math with some length parameters or things like that, uh, PowerShell is a great utility for that. And of course, you can access hidden element data that's not easily accessible. Like I said, I'll probably go through these in reverse, just from easiest to hardest. So hopefully that'll give you a good idea of why you'd use it. So where is PowerShell in Evolve? So we'll go through real examples, but PowerShell is kind of hidden within feature sets. So the main one that we leverage is parameter sync. That's probably the most common, one of the most powerful utilities we have. Um, Data profiles, renumber, element filter. Those are all utilities where you can access PowerShell from. And I'll give some examples of all of these and why you would use them in different areas and how you would use them in different areas. Uh, Last item here is data tables. So I'll do a little bit of an example of what that looks like as well, but it's not necessarily a specifically uh, utility itself without PowerShell, but it's just another piece to it. So let's go over the interface that you'll see when I pull up. So pretty basic window. Basically, you have your scripting area where you do all your text. Down on the bottom left are just a little bit of references that you can use within the script. Then you have this ability to connect to data tables. Again, we'll go through an example, but this is just how you make this connection in the script. Um, Down in the lower right is your optional context. So from a code perspective, we've made shortcuts, if you will, to the scripting. So we make specific context calls that you can leverage um, and give some examples of those. But really, it just simplifies the script that you have to write with what we put in there. Uh, then we get into our global functions feature. I have a good example of this and why you would use this. That's getting a little more advanced, but it's certainly going to be applicable. And then we have our copy and paste data. And I'll actually explain when we get into it why you would have this. So that's the interface. Now, let's just quickly talk about resources. So probably one of the most common things that gets asked is, well, how do I know how to use PowerShell? Where can I go to learn it? This type of thing. It's going to be a little challenging because, again, you're leveraging PowerShell in the Revit environment. So you're layering PowerShell syntaxes with Revit API, calls. So it's not like you're going to find a great resource outside of Evolve on how to do this. What we have done is we've done two main things to help people get started. The first one I'd point to, this is just a little screenshot of our help docs. We have an article, PowerShell commands for everyday usage. We keep that up to date basically as we work with our customers and come up with ways of using PowerShell. We try to keep that article up to date and give those examples out to everybody. It's a great resource. It's not the only thing you'll need. It's not going to solve all your problems, but it's certainly something to keep bookmarked and keep looking at. Um, Certainly, Google PowerShell syntax that will give you a bunch of sites where you can get different shortcuts and figure out how to use different calls. Um, they're they're applicable depending on what you're trying to do, but that's certainly a resource to use. um, Revit API docs. You can certainly check that out if you start getting into the weeds of things. Um, and the last thing is reach out to us. Reach out to support. Tell us you're having a problem. Tell us what you're trying to do. We're more than happy to work with you and help you out if we can. Oh, and I forgot to mention the other thing we do is we provide a sample project set of files on the website that you can access. And that's going to have a bunch of examples in there. I'll show a little bit of that as we move forward. Oops. All right. So these kind of the few things I'm going to walk through as far as how we're going to use it. So we're going to show how to access parameter data, setting variables, what that means, why we're going to do it, concatenating parameters or variables is going to be a common thing that's leveraged, transforming data and doing stuff with it. That'll be one of the last things that I show. Kind of those are the four main focuses of what we're going to cover here. So let's get into it. Just minimize this. All right. So starting off, so typically, like I said, people are going to start off with parameter sync. It's the most common utility to leverage PowerShell. Where you'll see this is there's a column for PowerShell script, and when you edit it, it pops up the PowerShell interface. Oh, I'm on a, sorry, pops up the PowerShell interface, and it's going to have the same window that I showed. Um, Now, when you're first getting into this, the challenge you're going to have is getting a script that works. And what you'll find yourself doing is filling out the script, trying something, hitting OK, try to run the parameter sync or whatever you're trying to do. It's going to fail, and then you're going to come back into this, edit it, and you can find yourself going over and over again. So where I'm going to actually start is within our PowerShell script tester. Basically, this is a standalone PowerShell window where you can write a script and test it. This is kind of where the copy and paste data comes into play. So what I'll be able to do is after I write a script, I can copy it and paste it into the applicable area. Um, so let's get started with our first script. So first thing we'll do, like I said, start off something simple is let's access some hidden parameters. So the easiest thing to do is your element ID, right? So when you have an element in uh, Revit, they all have element IDs. You don't see this element ID. Um, One way to access it is through the uh, Revit Snoop tool. So Revit Lookup, if you ever find yourself using this, this is a great tool, a great resource to leverage. Lets you basically just dive um, into the database. But here's my element ID. So let's just say you don't have this tool, or you're again going to leverage one of our utilities uh, for this. How would we use PowerShell to access that information? So I have a hotkey from my script tester, so I'll just use that to pop it up. So very simply, what I'm going to look for is my evolve element dot ID. I'll hit OK. This will allow me to click on an element, and when I click on it, I get my ID returned. Very simple, straightforward method. Keep in mind, when I'm looking at element ID, that's what I'm typing, ID, right? If I wanted a name, group, whatever that's listed here, I could use these. Um, so let's go a little more, uh, next kind of step up here. So let's pop up the script tester and let's do a parameter. So to get a parameter, we're going to say evolve element dot lookup parameter, and then we're going to do parentheses, and now we're going to type in the parameter name. So let's just say I want to grab my work plane. Um, so I'll do work plane, and then I'm going to type in as string. So I'm going to click on my object, and I get my my work plane. So this is specifically calling out my work plane parameter here. So I typed in as string. So I'm going to go back to the lookup tool, and we're going to look at this parameter here. And when I go down to my work plane, we're going to see as string, and there's my value. So I'm going to talk about or show some examples of the difference here, but basically the three different variable types that you're going to be dealing with are string values, value strings, or as string, as value string, or as double. As double is going to be your decimal feet. As value string might be a length in feet, a length with feet and inches. As string may be just a text value. What you'll find happening, this is going to be one of the first things you're probably going to come to a problem with. Let's see if I draw a conduit. And I'm going to bring my script tester up. And I want my length. So I'm going to grab my conduit, and it says there's no length. So you're going to say, well, I know there's a length because I can click on it and I see length. I typed it right. Why am I not getting a result? Again, we're going to go back to the Snoop tool and look at this length parameter, and we're going to see my as string is blank. So it's working exactly the way it's supposed to. This object just has no value entered into the as string parameter. Um, so what we really need is as value string or as double, depending on what I'm looking for. So when I go back to my script tester, oops, and I type in as value string, and now I click on my conduit, I get my 14 feet. So I get my feet in inches. Likewise, if I said as double, I get my 14 feet. Um, Now let's say I want my evolve category. So this is going to be a common type parameter in many families. So if I edit my type, I can see evolve category is lighting. So it should be straightforward. I should just be able to type in evolve category ID, and we'll say as string. So I'll click on it, I get nothing. Okay, well, maybe I got the value string or string wrong. So I'll jump back in. I won't look it up because it's got to be one of these things. Click on it and null again. So what's happening here? So again, let's look at the Snoop tool and look at evolve category ID. Well, you can see evolve category ID is not here. Something to notice, these are instance parameters, and now I'm looking for a type parameter. So where you're going to find that is somewhere down here. I believe it's, nope, valid types, get type ID, nope. I think I just passed it. Let's see, parameters, elements. Actually, it might be type ID parameters. There it is. So I kind of had to drill into the object a little more. So I had to go to the type ID, then go to parameters. Now I see my evolve category ID, and I can see the value is a string value here. So how do I get this? So this is going to be a little different, specifically for type parameters. What we first have to do is access the document. Then we have to get element. We can start our parentheses, and now we need our evolve element dot get type ID. So this is my get type ID. So I'm following the logic of how I had to drive into the element, right? So I had to go to this, I had to first access the document, then I had to go down the list and find get type ID. From there, I can now get my lookup parameter. Should be able to take that out there. And I should be able to say as string. So evolve element, document, get the element, get type ID, and now I can look at my parameter, hit OK, and now I have the value. Both of all these examples with this syntax or these specifically like the dot document, get element, etc. All these examples are on that help document on our site. It's probably one of the first, I have it pulled up here. It's going to be one of the first things that's listed, I think, here. So here's a bunch of common Revit functions. So again, you don't need to pause the video of this recording and figure out how to do it. You can literally copy paste right from the site with these that I'm going through. All right, so let's get a little more complicated here. So the most common thing to do with this is transforming data, right? Parameter sync can basically do everything I already did. I haven't done anything new that really requires PowerShell per se. I'm just kind of getting into how to start using it. So let's take this example of this light fixture, and let's just say I have some comments here. I wrote flange required in the comments field, and maybe I want to report the family and the comments field in a string. So I just want to put these two things together. So what I'm going to do here is let's use that, and we'll use we're going to first set my variables. So this is going to be the first good time to start using variables. So my first variable will be my name, and this will be, we'll use category ID. Actually, what we're going to name this is we'll use family. And then we're going to say comments. Comments will go back to the original syntax here, element revolve element, lookup parameter, comments. And that's going to be as string. All right, so now I want to actually return these variables as a result. So what I'm going to do is say, whoops, name and comments. All right, let's see if I got this family, the parameter comments, and let's hit OK. And I put an error in there. So let's go back to that. Oh, I think I need to put these in quotes. Try it again. There we go. Flange required. I did not get family, so I probably need to look up where that family parameter resides. Oh, it's actually an instance parameter. Um, let's go with that. So if that's the case, I can kind of just copy and paste this and get rid of that and just fill in family here. Let's go back to this and let's see what I'm missing here. Name, comments. Okay, so here's a good time to show this pop-up window. So what I want to see, I'm not getting a name, so I want to actually display to see if anything's filled out in this variable. So I'm going to use this show message box here. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'll get a message box before the command fully executes. So you'll see it's blank, and then I get the results. So this is missing my name, and I can tell by that first blank box that I'm not having anything in the name. So let's go back to my parameters and look at family name, and I'm using a string value, and this is a value string. So we'll go back to this, name, value string. So if I keep this message box here, I should get a value there. So there's my family or my name. Well, I had that pre-selected. So let's do this again without that pre-selected. There we go. There's my family name. And now there's the concatenation of both of those. Um, So you can see as you're going through this, you're going to have to kind of go back and forth, figure out where your variables are set. Are they correct? Are you returning everything you think you're getting? If I was doing this in parameter sync, there'd be a lot of back and forth that I'd have to do, a lot of clicking. That's why this script tester really comes into play. Um, okay, let's get into some other things. Let's get into some measurements. So let's look at, go back to the length value. So I'm going to set a variable for length. And what we'll do is let's convert feet to inches. Okay. So I need a few parentheses here. Evolve element, look up parameter, length. Now here I'm going to do as double. So I'm going to get my decimal feet. To get them to inches, I have to multiply it by 12. And then because I'm multiplying this, I'm actually going to send this and return this as a string. And let's return my length. Oops. All right. And let's click on my conduit. Whoa, I made all kinds of mistakes here. So let's take a look at this. As double times 12, and I forgot a parenthesis right there. All right, so that it comes out null. So let's just make sure I have a length. Yep. Oops. So we have a Y in front of that. So I must have fat fingered that. Let's try that again. There we go. 168 inches. So that's an easy one there, but a common one for converting feet to inches. Now, with Revit, if I'm zoomed in and I do a little stretching, Let me do a little bit more. There we go. Revit likes to get down to the 256, but we don't build spaceships, we build buildings. So I want to do some rounding. So how would I round this? So what I could do, instead of just returning my length, I can do some math here. So I can parentheses, open bracket, math, close that out, round my length, and I'm going to multiply that by 12, divide that by 12, so that'll be the nearest inch. Oop, missing my close parentheses, right after that 12, and I get that nice round number again. So 12 by 12 is going to be the conversion to round to the nearest inch. Again, if you reference back to this document, really you're just doing 12 by the fraction. So if I wanted the nearest eighth inch, I could do divide by 96. That would just look like this. So it should be 10 by 12 divided by 96. I don't know why I'm getting 21. But let's move on. I'm not sure why I'm getting 21 there. Might be doing it twice. Let's get into some calculations. So the example I threw together, just to try to get kind of agnostic here on what we're calculating, is take a housekeeping pad. So let's just say first will be the easy one. I'll just calculate the area of a pad. So what I want to do here is set my variables. So I have two variables to do that. I have width. So I'm going to do lookup parameter pad width. Note that the parameters that I'm looking up, it's irrelevant if they're shared parameters, project parameters, or anything. It's just a parameter by name. That's all it is. So this is going to be as value string. And then I have my depth. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just copy and paste this. And we'll have my pad depth. So what do I want to return? I want to return width times depth. All right. And we got null. So I have my pad width, pad depth. Oops, let's go back to that. We will element width, pad depth. Let's just make sure. Let's make sure that I have both those in there. So let's see what their values are. Let's do width. So nothing for width. And what did I do with width? Pad width. Let's see what the parameter is here. Pad width. And let's just make sure I'm returning a value string. Pad width, yep, 4 feet. All right, so what did I do? Probably spelled something wrong here. Lookup parameter. Gotta spell parameter, right? All right. And I still spelled it wrong. Parameter. All right, let's give it a shot again here. Come on now. Lookup parameter. Pad width as value string. Is there a space there? Nope, no space. What am I missing here? Let's go back to my width. Getting that. All right. Let's check my depth. Getting that. All right. And let's see, why is it not returning the calculation? Width and times depth. Let's see if I just need these in parentheses. I don't think I do. 3'8". Okay. No. All right, so let's do this. I might have to just set the variable here instead. So let's do a calculation variable, and we'll equal width times depth. And we'll return the calc. Don't think I need parentheses here. All right, now it's frustrating. Width times depth. What am I missing here? Getting both of those, width times depth. Maybe it's parentheses. What am I missing here? Let me just save this because I got them both running. I'm drawing a blank here. I shouldn't need a space there. That should not be needed. All right, well, I'm going to move on because I'm getting stuck on this one and I don't know why that's not calculating. Well, my next one was going to be cubic yards. So actually, let me see if I have this one written out over here on my screen. All right, got a copy of this. Let me throw this in here. Still nothing. All right, well, let's move on. I have this cubic yard one already typed out. So let me just throw that one in here. So basically I was just going to do cubic yards on that pad. And I want to return my calc here. Let's see if I have that same issue. Let's throw it in quotes. Come on now. Calculate width times depth times thickness divided by 27. This should all work. What am I missing here? Oh, I guess I have an extra parenthesis there. There we go. Finally got one. Okay, so cubic yards, I'm not sure why that other one wasn't working. You can see that Revit already gives me cubic feet. So that's going to automatically cubic feet, but we do concrete in yards. So this would be an example of how you could kind of convert uh, or calculate cubic yards. Obviously, I could convert cubic feet to cubic yards. That would be another way, easier way to do it. You can see that I am getting the like five, whatever it is, six decimal places. So let's say if I wanted to round that to the nearest third decimal place, this would be another application for a math function. And I could say round. I want to round all of this to the third decimal place. And let me make sure I have my parenthesis open and close, close. I think I need one more here. Nope. I'm going to copy and paste this. There we go. So there's my third decimal place. I could just adjust the number here, would change my decimals. I could also add text to this if I just add text to the end. So I could say cubic yards. Um, so I'm let's just say I'm going to use this as a sync rule. So I'll layer this into an evolve utility now. So I want to come up with a description of the cubic yards for this. What I can do is copy this data. So I have this all working. And now I could go to parameter sync. Let's just check what this is. I think this is just a generic model. Yep. So I'll go to parameter sync and I'll make a simple rule here. Add description. We'll turn this on. We'll just apply this to all generic models for the sake of time. And we don't need, whoops, we don't need a copy from parameter, and we're going to go to evolve description. And then within my PowerShell script, I can hit paste. And now I have that pasted. And I hit OK. And you can see this updates. And now when I stretch it, I can leverage parameter sync for running all the time. And as I stretch this, my cubic yards are automatically calculated. So again, parameter sync is like the number one tool that you would leverage. And this is obviously probably a relatively contrived scenario, but it's how you could leverage it. So let's go, now that we're kind of getting into the evolve tools, let's go through a few of them and show how you would use parameter sync in the various tools. So a good one, I'll come back to parameter sync. Let's kind of go to something somewhat easier and more common utility like renumber. So a renumber has the ability to do common numbering. So let's just say I wanted to number my straight conduits. So my element filter, are conduits. Just put a C there, put a number. We'll write to comments for this exercise. We don't need to process. So here I'm going to enable my common numbering. So the most common thing that's going to happen is we're going to use a parameter, right? So let me just kind of show what you would be used to and why this doesn't fully do what I want to. So let's just say I want to have common numbers for everything over 10 feet. That's my stock length. And anything under 10 feet, I want a unique number for, right? So now with the current rule, let me just close out of this. Let me get a couple of conduits drawn out here. And let's throw some various lengths. So 5 feet, 6 feet, whatever, 11 feet. Okay. So I have a couple at greater than 10, a couple less than 10. So let's go back to this rule and run that on my conduits. Now I'm using length as my common numbering, so my results are going to be different numbers for each one. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. But 2 of these are over 10 feet. And I want those to have the same number and the other ones to have a different number. So what I would do in this case is within my custom custom field for basically custom common numbering, I can use PowerShell. So what do I want to evaluate? I want to evaluate my length. So we'll do evolve element, look up parameter length as double. And now I'm going to introduce an if statement. So if length is less than, so that's how the less than syntax is less than 10, then I want to return my length, and I should be able to close that. So if length is less than 10, so I'll hit OK. So I'm going to grab these, renumber the elements again. So I did it right. That's 5, that's 6, that's 7, and that's 7. So now both of these have the same number. They're greater than the stock length. These have unique numbers because they're less than the stock length. So I basically said less than, and then I defined what that length is. Um, Again, kind of a contrived scenario here, but that is one place in renumber where you find PowerShell, and that's kind of why you would do this. So I have some few others that I won't actually like type out, but I want to explain kind of what they do and how you could use them. Um, all the ones that I'm going to go through now, or most of them will be in these sample files, so you can actually get these example scripts right from there. But let's look at hanger catalog. So this is like one of the most common ones that have come up. Let me turn this off. So what the script will do, let's look at it and then show the example. So a little bit more in depth, but really the the purpose of this is I want to generate a catalog number for my trapeze hanger. This is very common. I have standard ways of making trapeze. I have standard configurations. I want to send prefab a list of catalog numbers and have them build that and not have to make a drawing. So really, this is a little oversimplified. It would have to be a little more complex in reality, but it gets the point across. So basically, I'm evaluating my strut length and my rod lengths. And all these switches are really doing is going across the various tiers. Because I'm dealing with 4 tiers of strut with different hardware sizes, it's basically setting all the different options, right? If it's a 1 tier, it's a 1T, 2 tier, 2T. If it's 7/8 strut, it's an A, inch and 5, it's a B, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, I'm stringing together all these values to make the catalog number. So what that looks like in practice is if I click on this hanger, may have something, may not. Okay, so there's nothing there. I'll bump it with my keyboard and I get a string of basically catalog number, right? 2T, it's a 2 tier. BB would be the 2 strut types. 24 is the width. 3/8 is the hardware. And then my 2 rod lengths. I have a 1 tier over here. If I bump that, I get the same thing, a 1T with a single B, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Now, one of the things again that comes up is rounding. So I certainly could adjust it in the sync rule. Also remember within the evolve trapeze hangers, there is a rounding parameter. So if I want to round to the nearest foot, I could adjust it there. And then that will automatically account for my rounding. Scroll down here. So there it's rounded to 60. But there's a few ways you could go about it. Another one to go through is, let me jump to a different project. So this is an example that recently came up. It's going to be electrical specific, but it's kind of a cool case of how to leverage parameter sync in Colorizer. So the request was color coding by circuits. So basically, customer had a specific color coding scheme based on if the circuit was black only, red only, blue only, or some type of mix, red, black, blue, black, depending on quantity of phases in the circuitry. So what this looks like is inside of Colorizer, I have all my color schemes, And where parameter sync shows up here is actually within my element filter. So in the element filter, it may look like I'm just doing conduit and conduit fittings, but down on the bottom left, I have this ability to use parameter sync here. PowerShell here. When I edit this script, it's going to look very simple where it almost looks like this should not even do anything. And you're right, this technically wouldn't do anything, although this is leveraging a global function. So let's jump into here and let's take a look at this and why I would use a global function in this case. So without going through the script in detail, I'll show how it references a data table, but basically the script is identifying the quantity of circuits and what numbers they are and what the corresponding color is. So it basically matches the various colors to circuits, and it's going to return this. Now, um, if I were to do this here without a global function, every one of my color schemes uh, back back at the beginning, all my color rules, I would have to have almost the same identical script, but just a slight variance between each one because each one has a slightly different condition. So if you find yourself duplicating your scripts multiple times, even across functions, a global function will allow you to set a function and basically make the script once. Again, the benefit could easily be I'm not putting 6 scripts when I can really make one, but if I have to make a change, I don't have to make it 6 times, I can make it once. But basically what this looks like in practice is if I have my conduit here and I change to circuit 3, it turns to red. If I turn it to 5, it turns to blue. And if I do a circuit 1 and 3, right, black and red, it turns to another color. Um, Certainly a little more advanced there, but a great use case for PowerShell in Colorizer. So I showed it in the element filter. So again, just like with element filter, it shows up everywhere. The main utility, you could use PowerShell as well. So if you're making a brand new element filter, you have that same option here. So with Evolve, we do ship with a bunch of default element filters, and one of them actually has a script in it. So let's jump back to this project here. And let's just say the use case for this was I'm using the tag all function and I'm doing electrical fixtures. I tag everything and I get a bunch of null tags. Let's just say, let's see, what is this? Oh, this is the wrong tag. Let me do it one more time. Change the tag, multi-category. Let's use that. Okay, so I have a bunch of null tags here that came in. So how would I delete this? Say if I had a whole floor plan and I just did a tag all, but I get a bunch of null tags. I can't do select all because it selects all. So I want to select by value. So this select null tags element filter will allow me to select only the null tags. Even if I had a linked wall tagged and I want to select this, it selects the null tags. So how does it do it? It's with PowerShell. So if we look at this script, it looks a little more complicated because this supports both linked tags or tagging of linked elements as well as native elements. So this first part is for the link. The second part is just for the tag. And you may be asking like, why would I use PowerShell for this? Why can't I just say if the tag is null? Well, if you consider like how parameter sync works, it's based on parameter values, and an annotation doesn't have a parameter value. It's reading an element parameter, right? So it's not as straightforward as you would think. Um, but with this script, I could now do select null tags and delete all the null. Um, All right, so there's a few minutes left. Certainly post any questions. I want to show just a couple of more examples here. Um, And if any more questions come in, I'll try to get them at the last minute. So go ahead and post them if you have them. So another useful data table rule, I'll show a little more in depth of this, is calculating, for example, labor by length. So I use parameter sync here to calculate a value by length. What this looks like is a script, simple script. I'm getting my length, I'm getting my description, and here's where I'm doing a lookup in evolve tables. So you see I'm referencing a table here, which is just a simple table that gives me description and a value to multiply it by. So it's a very simple script. This is going to be this is the main use case for data tables, is to do lookups. This is one example of a lookup. All right, there's one question. So we're going to do a lookup within a data table to find two matching values within two columns and have it report an adjacent column. I haven't seen the example. So that's a good question. Yes, there is a way to do lookup with two columns to validate two columns and return a third. We'll get back to you, Joel, on that one and give you an example of how to do that. Don't have time to throw it together right now, but that would be also another good one for us to post on the website. But there's definitely a way to do that. All right, so last I wanted to end, so I mentioned, I went a little long here, but I mentioned about using custom workflows. So I wanted to come up with just a simple use case of what I would consider a custom workflow. So let's just say, and this came up recently, I want to timestamp points when I'm placing them, right? How would I do that? And normally this gets asked, hey, Evolve, why don't you add this as a feature? And our response is, well, you can do it today. This is the main reason why we have this in here. It's if we can solve your problem today, you don't have to wait for us to update it. And sometimes we get asked, a lot of times we get asked for things that we really can't put into the program because it's kind of niche to a particular organization. So we create these tools to do this. So timestamping a point, parameter sync, we'll do any update, simple element filter, generic models, and a very simple script here. Return my date in the format. There's a document that tells you what this is, but you can format it in various ways. There's a few ways to do it. It's a simple way here. So get date. So what does this look like? Go ahead and place my point. So I'll place a couple of them. So if I click on the point, you'll see my comments. I timestamped them. I'm getting the seconds as I click fast, and I can timestamp it. So that's all well and good, but of course, if I bump it, the timestamp changes because now it's just running all the time. So in parameter sync, I certainly could set this to new element creation, right? So now when I place the point, it's going to timestamp it. And if I bump it, nothing changes. So now I know the date and time that I actually placed the thing. And remember, within parameter sync, we have the ability to process nested objects, right? So this would be a use case of why you would check this box, because not all my points are single points. Sometimes they're nested. So if I wanted to place this light fixture again, or a new one over here, and then I select that point, it also timestamps the nested points. So it's a very, you know, maybe it's a loose workflow, but the idea that, uh, for my company, this is what I want to occur while people are doing these activities. That is what Parameter Sync is best leveraged for. Create your custom workflows with our tools. And like I said, they're very scalable. We have a whole training video on how to transfer these types of things across projects, how you can set them up as network defaults and standards through your company. But again, as far as like the best resource, if you get stuck, reach out to us and we will certainly help you out. Um, so I think that will do it. I definitely went a little bit longer than I wanted to, got held up a couple times. Um, but like I said, reach out to us with any questions from here, and I think we'll leave it there.
Great. Thank you so much, Adam, for this presentation today. This will be available on YouTube for anyone who may have joined us late, or if you want to share it with your team members. If there's any questions here we didn't get to, I'll make sure those get into Adam's hands and he can follow up with you after the webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and have a fantastic day.